Imagine this, 20 of the world's most influential countries all thrown into a room once a year to talk politics, economics, and in general, international issues. Yep, that's the G20. It's like the G7, but larger and a lot more fractured. But what does the G20 do? Who's in it? And should you really care? Well, get comfy, turn up the volume, like and subscribe, and welcome to the G20 Explained. Hi, welcome to Economics in Action. If you like this kind of content, then subscribe to support the channel. Anyway, on with the video. Okay, I get it, you might be thinking. What is so special about this other generic world group that supposedly talks about the world's problems with little to no action? Why even bother? Why is the G20 even a thing? Well, let's start with the basics. The G20 is relatively new, formally established in 1999, with an inaugural meeting in Berlin. It comprises of course, 20 members, which I'll list here to save my lazy brain from reading them all. It also has some permanent guests that attend meetings, which include the country Spain, as well as the African Union and ASEAN. So, why 20 members? And why these 20 members? Well, in short, 20 is thought to be a small enough group of nations to get things done, and a large enough group to make a global impact. But then, why these 20 members? Well, because they kind of dominate the global economy. The G20 is home to about 90% of global GDP, 2/3 of the world population, and more than 3/4 of international trade. As a group, it is basically the world's top 20 industrialized nations, the ones capable of fixing global problems. And they kind of caused many of them, to be fair. Now, all because an international group of nations is rich, powerful, and add up to a conveniently round number, that doesn't make it a well-functioning body. If anything, many members of the G20 don't actually get along very well, hindering cooperation. Just look at Japan and South Korea, China and India, and the USA, and basically every other nation. So, with that in mind, has the G20 ever achieved anything? And what is its current mission? The G20's mission is pretty generic. If we were to sum it up into a few words, it would be to increase the chances of harmonious prosperity in the world. Yeah, that sounds fun. What that really means is that the G20 is a platform where diplomacy can take place, and that's a good thing. The world and its inhabitants are diverse. We live our lives differently, yet we also share many similarities. And for the most part, those similarities converge around ensuring security for our communities, food supplies, job opportunities, and in some, but not all nations, freedom to express oneself. The G20 is not a group that guarantees that these outcomes are set in stone. This is, of course, an ongoing battle. But it is a group that improves the likelihood of us ensuring these societal stabilizing factors. Let's just look at a couple of recent G20 summits as an example. In 2021, the G20 summit was held in Rome, Italy, and the US administration and the EU reached an agreement to remove tariffs on steel and aluminium, ones put in place during the Trump administration. Back in the G20 summit in 2020 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, economic measures to combat the COVID-19 virus were discussed and ideas were shared. Collaboration was given a chance, even if solid agreements were not made. This may all sound like a waste of time for some, and I'm sure many of you may even think that it is just a way for countries to appear like they are taking action on certain global topics, when in reality they sit on the floor counting their fingers. But the reality is that if such groups, meetings, organizations were not to exist, it wouldn't stop the need for global collaboration to take place on certain issues. The process of having summits, leaders meeting face to face and periodically talking is what reduces the political friction for nations to get to discuss concerns, update on progress, and reduce negative impacts that can destabilize the world. With that said, the G20 therefore should not be considered a sister organization of the G7. The G20 is much more diverse, with nations that govern themselves differently, and in many occasions remain hostile to other G20 members. Whereas the G7 can be considered a pillar of the West, the G20 is slightly more of an international group that may not get along, but acknowledge that they share the same planet. Beyond the criticism surrounding the ineffectiveness of the G20, which has some merit, after all, the group has been found to have subsidized fossil fuel companies to the tune of $3.3 trillion between 2015 and 2021, despite sustainability being a reoccurring theme at summits, there is of course plenty of criticism. So let's jump into the gossip, starting with who isn't a member. Because if we take a look at our 20 members again, you might be able to identify that only one nation is located in Africa. You know, that massive continent with 1.3 billion people and the fastest growing population on the planet. Of course, the African Union is a permanent guest, and no African nation is economically developed to the level that Australia or Germany is. But just having one nation at the table seems a little hard to justify, especially when Nigeria, Egypt, and Ethiopia have a population the same size of the EU. But of course, if the decision is purely on the grounds of economic development, then I guess all is okay. Moving to Northern Europe, we have Norway, one of the wealthiest nations in the world. And back in 2010, its prime minister criticized the G20 as a group that undermines the inclusive international process, arguing why should the fate of 173 UN nations be in the hands of a self-appointed G20? This, of course, is an argument to be had, and I'd like to hear your opinions in the comments section below. Is this necessarily fair for the others who take part in the international community? So there you go, the G20. It's the most inclusive, exclusive group of predominantly rich and large-ish nations that self-appointed themselves to fix the world of its problems while simultaneously financing them. Although not perfect, and with nations that have some clear tensions, the G20 does represent a large economic and political force that, if combined through collaborative work, are capable of improving the economic prospects of us all on planet Earth. And perhaps for that, the next time a G20 summit comes around, we should all pay at least some attention. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel and like this video. Do you think the G20 is a good thing? Also, if your home nation is not in the G20, would you want to be a member? Tell me down below. Otherwise, take care. Bye.